Welcome to Smart Social Secrets Tips. Good morning. I hope you're doing well. Hi, I am here today to talk to you about something that I learned last week from David Ooh, and I am like echoing. Hold on a second. Let me see if I can change this. Hold on a minute. Let me do my settings. That's always good, right? All right. So I'm not sure if this is going to work today. How crazy is that? Okay, I'm not getting an echo anymore, so that's good. Sorry about that, guys. I was trying to figure it out, but hopefully you can hear me. I can actually I can stop my thing. Well, this is not. If so, tell me if it's echoing still. Let me know if it's echoing on your side. I don't hear it on my side anymore. So I think we're in good shape. Okay, good. So that was the best way to manage that. Sorry about that. So welcome, and sorry about the little technical difficulty at the beginning. I've never had the mic do that before, but today I want to talk to you about something that I think is really interesting. I was able to go to the USA Icon event last week, and I heard that David Epstein. He was one of the keynote speakers, and he wrote a book that I wanna share with you today because I feel like this book is, like, really a incredible, mind bender for me. So, it kind of changed the way I look at certain things, and I know that doesn't really happen that often as far as I'm concerned, with just minor things, and so I really called it breaking down the niche myth. So, thriving as a generalist, we talk a lot about how important it is to niche down, especially in marketing, and I still do believe that when you're online, it's easier to get people to understand who you are and what you are by focusing on it because people like to categorize things. Like we as humans we love to categorize. And so why this is interesting is because this is David Epstein. David Epstein was talking about this in his book, Range. And really what range is about is becoming a generalist and what being a generalist really means for you as a professional. And what I loved about his speech is that he really gave good examples of people that had been, generalists and actually became really well known for something. So one of the ones that I think is really interesting is Vincent van Gogh, and I'll talk about him just in a minute here as part of that. But there's several others that he brought up as well, and I'm going to share some of that with you today. I'm going to share you a little bit about the book, and then I'm going to tell you about sort of a club I want to kind of launch over the next couple of months through our Smart Social Mastery program. So anyway, this is called Range, and I am kind of about midway through it. I couldn't even wait till the end to tell you guys about it because it's really exciting how he brought this very counterintuitive thinking into a book with a lot of research and bottom line interesting stuff on the bottom. So let me kind of move my slide to show you kind of where I want to speak about this. So it really talks about the cult of the Head Start and the idea that it's you got to get started early and young. I think about this. I'm a violin player, for example, and if you're going to be a virtuoso violinist, they want to start you like on the Suzuki method or something when you're about 2 or 3 or 4 years old. And those people tend to like it seems like, at least in the mythology of the world, they seem to get a lot of, um, they go to the highest levels. And if you start at an older age I didn't start, for example, till I say the 6th grade, something like that. And so, I played violin and I kind of played all the way through to the end of high school, but then I stopped. I just stopped playing it. I went and did some other things. I went and did singing and some other things that I really love, but I never became like a great violinist. Well, fast forward 30 years later, just talking about my own experience, and I was at my church and I think it was my husband or my kids, I don't know who, told somebody at the church that I could play the violin. And honestly, I hadn't played the violin in many, 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 many years. Played in high school, like most people, you do an instrument all the way through high school, you quit, right? It's kind of like everyone else. And, they said, "Well, we really would love for you to play violin for us." And I still had a violin because, my parents had actually, my grandfather was a fiddler, like, he went into, like, bars and restaurants with people, all the fiddling like that on the country music side of things in Colorado, it's pretty much what he did. And so I had his violin, I had a violin from my youth that my mother had given me, and so, I pulled out the violin and it was, how do you say, kind of an awful experience kind of an awful experience, but I started playing a little bit more and I got a little bit better, and now I play, pretty much all the time in the church. So, for example, I brought that back to my life through just sort of, interest and excitement. I did practice and stuff, but what I became really good at is listening by ear and playing by ear. So I can play and I can read music, but I can do a lot better if I'm playing by ear, like inside of a chord structure or whatever. The reason I bring this up is because um, we think that we can't learn new things, and I didn't start playing again until I was in my late 30s. And so, again, that was really interesting, and it was something that, David Epstein said, and I'm just making an analogy to me, and that is, that he said most entrepreneurs don't get started until they're 40 or older, and we have this myth that entrepreneurs come to the they start something in their basement, Steve Jobs Steve Jobs, they start something in their basement or their garage, and they, at the age of 18 or early 20s, when they can when they can put in the work and they can sleep, and they can sleep on the floor. We have all kinds of mythology around this, and we do it in our education system too. Like, we're very, my kids all have to have endorsements in high school. They have to decide if they're gonna do STEM or if they're gonna do whatever. And what's really interesting in um, what this book brought out is that at the end of the day, actually a real generalist bottom line, a generalist idea actually can help you a lot. And a lot of really difficult problems rely on you understanding more than just your narrow specialty. And I thought that was so interesting, especially since it doesn't it's not age dependent. It's like, just because you didn't get a generalist education when you were in your young years doesn't mean you can't now. And another analogy I'm gonna bring to that is, um, when I started thinking about online social media, how social media, worked, and I can't remember exactly the book or what sparked this, but I realized somewhere along the line that anthropology was a really good example of how, like, you could think about online communities. Because, an anthropologist, they go into a new culture, they spend time there, they learn all about that culture, and then they interact with that culture, and I thought, "Wow, could that be the same for online communities? Why wouldn't we, like, approach it like an anthropologist, not like a marketer, like I am? I'm a marketer, right? So, or a public relations professional, which I also saw myself as. And so this layer of general studies will help you to really, click into that. I'm gonna make this bigger so you can see it, but I had Midjourney help me make this woman, and, I asked him to make a multipotentialite. So if you read my, um, you know, promo for this, I talked about multipotentialites, and I love that word. Multipotentialite means somebody who has multiple potentiality, somebody who knows multiple things, who's done multiple things, and that person actually is perfectly aligned to do really, really well in this new AI world. So here's what we're dealing with. We have all of these new AI programs and machines, and they're coming in, and everybody's worried about, like, are they going to take over my job, and so on. And here's the funny thing, or the interesting thing: what AI is really good at, or what machines are really good at, is performing tasks, performing a bunch of patterns. So you can, like, set up a pattern, and it can automate things for you, and it can do that. And we've been kind of moving along that way. We've been looking at automation, in the last years or so. That's pretty much what we've been talking about, is how can we get more, um, machines to help us to be more productive, right? And so now we're getting into this mode where we're getting into the AI era, I guess you could say, where, machines are going to be extremely good at that, and they're gonna get better at that. And so a lot of things that we've done as humans, aren't necessary anymore. Like, we don't need anybody to, do, count, for us, math on abacuses anymore. We don't have human calculators. Uh, I love the movie Hidden Figures. They talked about the women, the Black women mostly, that who, did all of the math calculations for the space program. I mean, wow, like, amazing. But, now we have calculators and computers and Big Blue. Okay, so Big Blue, is a computer that rolled out a few years ago and did a bunch of chess games against chess masters, and started to win against chess masters. So why is that? I mean, how is that, kind of proving your point, Candy, you might be asking? Well, here's what I thought was really interesting about that. Um, there were a couple of chess masters that saw this, and they decided to, create groups or teams of humans and computers together. So what happened is that the computers would learn all the patterns. They're great at that. They're better than we are at learning patterns. And then they would execute the patterns. And then what would happen with the humans, and the humans were freed up because they didn't have to remember all those patterns to think, well, what are we trying to accomplish? They would come up with strategies, and they would feed the strategies into the computers together, and the computers would execute the patterns. And then what ended up happening is that they blew everybody else out. They beat all computers by themselves. They didn't beat all, chess masters by themselves. These groupings of humans and machines together were really great. That was in his book, and it didn't even talk about AI specifically, but I'm just taking that specific, idea of masters and bringing it into what we're dealing with now, and that is that you, as a human, need to generalize your knowledge base so that you can make the connections that are necessary to solve problems. And one of the things I loved about the book is that, Mr. Epstein talked about, how we as humans, are good at solving the problems once we define the problem. And once we define the problem, if we can recall or think of analogies that could apply to the problem often outside of our own expertise. It's mind-blowing, guys. I mean, really, I love it because I think that, this particular kind of idea or thought is interesting. So, one of the things that, Epstein talked about in his book was, the Boston Consulting Group, and if you've been around for any time, you know that the Boston Consulting Group is a pretty well-known, consulting group that all the big top companies in America and other places use, um, their for ideas. And one of the things that they've put together is an internal intranet of analogies, and they've looked at that in different areas of, they've created analogies for different kinds of ideas. So, go into that intranet and look up problems that might have characteristics of a problem that you're trying to solve in a different domain. And what the research has shown is that people that use analogies that aren't inside of their own domain, like, so, I'm in marketing, so to go out and find a case study in marketing is great. That's better than just me trying to solve the problem on my own. Okay, step 1. Step 2, what if I go outside of my domain and look for analogies there? Just like I told you a minute ago, where I was looking for analogies in psychology for online community building and development. So this becomes really interesting because we talked a lot about collecting stories, you know, and here's where I think we can really kind of center in on something even more exciting. What if we started to collect analogies? Analogies for problems that we've solved, seen other people solve, or, that might relate to what we're doing in a different way. Another example he gave in the book that I thought was really powerful was the movie industry, Netflix, and so on. And Netflix and their algorithm, they were having trouble giving you, suggested movies for you specifically. So, like, you're a very, complex person with complex interests. So what they did instead is they looked in aggregate to people that were like you, and then they took that database, which is much bigger, and they started to, offer you movies through that. So, the only problem with that, of course, is if you have more than one person watching Netflix on a single channel, you'll have it might, get off a little bit there. But I love that idea that looking at things in aggregate so that you can see how it would happen. Um, the other thing that he talked about were projects and how big, huge, multi-public work types of projects, like building a factory or building a train or whatever, are often underestimated on their cost and time, and so overcost and over budget and so on, and they wanted to know why that was happening, and part of it was that people tend to overestimate their competence in their areas of specialty, and so they have an overly rosy view of what's going to happen, and so what they did instead is they went and they looked at other projects that had been done in different domains, that's similar, and they found that if you looked at that project and you use those kinds of, ideas, that you would be much closer to your time limit and so on. So it was just really, really cool, this book. I think everybody should read, and especially if you're great at what you do. The other thing that he said that I think caught my attention the most when we were at the conference, and I wrote it down so much, I was, "Wow, what do you mean by that?" And that was that, they did a study of a hospital, and, the specialists were away, and they were heart specialists and so on, and more patients during that time when the specialists were away lived through their procedures than when the specialists were there. And they were shocked because, of course, the specialists specialize in doing those things. You want somebody if you're working in your heart to have, like, done it before. I mean, I would. This is definitely, like, counterintuitive to me. But the problem is when you're a specialist, often go back to the same pattern. You use pattern repeat patterns, and you just do the same thing over and over instead of looking at the problem afresh anew at each patient. It saves time, we do it it's a human thing, so I'm not saying specialists are good, I'm just saying that as specialists, we need to also broaden our thinking, and so I don't know what you guys think about that, but that is absolutely something that I have not, really heard before. Okay, so finally, I'm gonna bring up mental Van Gogh. And one of the things that he was talking about in the book, through kind of great detail, is kind of the life of Vincent Van Gogh. I don't know if you know who he is. So Vincent Van Gogh is a very well-known artist, and, his paintings are worth, like, hundreds of millions of dollars, and he was, a like, they say from the very young age, he was a terrible drawer. He tried to be a draftsman, he couldn't do that. He didn't really do well in school. He didn't really do well in any sort of avocation he took on after school. He took on quite a few different ones. I mean, he had some interests. He was really loved to read. He read voraciously and widely, which, by the way, is something you might wanna consider is how many more, things get into your brain, that you can kind of draw upon when you get there. So he read a lot. He was a librarian, he was a teacher, he was a failed art dealer, he was a failed pastor. He failed pretty much or left pretty much every single avocation he had. And then later in life, I think 40, I think that's what they said, he started to paint again, and he had a couple of lessons from one of his relatives, but not many, like maybe 2 or 3 months he studied with them. He enrolled back in school for painting and didn't do very well at it, but he kept going, and then, he just kind of blossomed on his own, and he started to do lots of paintings, and he did this. So this is a really interesting story to me because, um thought, he's a prodigy. He started really young. Art was something he was interested in. No, none of that happened. He wasn't interested in art at all. He was interested in the natural world. He liked being outside. He liked looking at things. Maybe that helped him with his art later because he really understood how, a leaf would look, or some sort of, I don't know. But at the end of the day, the thing that he blossomed in happened later, and it was very, unexpected. He did get some notoriety before he died, but not too much before he died 'cause he died fairly young. So, he spent life getting to his avocation. And so we often think that we're failed people, and we look at our children too. I think about that too. If you've got teenagers, you've gotta look at your children like they are developing, and some of the things that they're doing are just, great. It's extra gravy for the road, but we often get very frustrated if they haven't specialized down enough because it's really prevalent in our culture. We want people to specialize. We need them to do that so they're gonna be, successful or whatever. So I would just say that if you're still finding your way, or maybe you're thinking about doing something different or stepping out on your own, for your own business, it the best thing you can do is just get as widely read and just kind of look at all the other discipline I've been looking at a lot lately also is, psychology and also, brain science. I love brain science. I think it really talks a lot about why people make the decisions that they make in marketing, for example. Love that. Brain science, anthropology. There's just a lot of things that actually relate, like, to what we do, but just along the plane. And so I'd love to know what you're looking into, what you think. I would love for you to, think about reading this book with me. We're gonna be doing it at Smart Social Mastery if you're interested in being part of that membership, but even just reading it on your own and letting me know what you think, I would love to know. Because I feel like this book is going to be something that's sort of pivotal for me, especially. I'm really getting it. I really feel that. So I'm studying it like it's a master's course. And I do think that, understanding that we need to be collecting analogies that solve problems, I mean, that's a game. So I want stories, but I want my stories to be analogies. I just told you a couple from my life today, but I can see myself creating a worksheet or a spreadsheet with all of these stories in it and all of these analogies. So, anyway, that's it for today. I just wanted you to know about this book. Let me pull it back up again so that you can see, the actual name of the book and what it is. On LinkedIn, at least, I put the link to the book, but it's on Amazon. The link to the book, um, in the comments, and I will also do the same for all the other platforms after I'm done here. I'll go back and put and what it's talking about is something that we can use to, catapult our results and what we're doing today. So, that is all I have for you today, and I'm sorry I started with a short, blip in the beginning. I'll put a, note on the comments to for people to fast forward about 3 minutes. But yeah, I'm really excited about this book. Let me know what you think. I would love to hear it. All right.